Welcome back to another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm Susie Selleck, and today we're in Fayetteville, Ohio at the St. Angela Merici Catholic Church, and I'm joined by Bill McCafferty. Bill, thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming, Susie.
So I noticed that there is at the altar, there's a statue of St. Patrick's, and there's another one at the entrance. Was this, when the church started, was this predominantly an Irish thick community?
Yes, but not exclusively.
Okay.
There were many French settlers that came here to this area. In fact, the name of the town is Fayetteville, and that was named after General Lafayette, who was our great friend during the Revolutionary War. Indeed, this is St. Patrick's Church. It was named after the great Irish saint, St. Patrick's. And all the priests that have been assigned here, or most of them, between 1845 and the present time have been Irish priests. Names like O'Malley, Daly, Bow, Butler, Fogarty, Coogan. There's a possibility that there was tension in the church and conflict, and the bishop handled that very well. He set up a second church not more than a mile from here for the French parishioners to attend. And that was Holy Ghost Church in Veracruz, close by. Now, you might think that that's odd, that there be two churches within a mile, one for the Irish and one for the French. But in the cities, that was a normal solution to the problem. It's not unusual to have a German church on one corner and diagonally across it, an Irish or a French church. There's also a group here known as the Hibernians, which is an Irish group.
Okay.
The Ancient Order of Hibernians. And there were a lot of them here in the late 1800s.
Bill, the name St. Angela Merici, that's a very interesting, very beautiful name. Now, how did that come about?
Well, St. Angela Merici was an Italian saint, and she was the foundress of the Order of Ursulines in the 16th century. It was a teaching order, and they taught girls, which was sort of unique at that time. So the idea caught on, and their schools spread all throughout Europe. Now here in Brown County, it was under the Diocese of Cincinnati. The Bishop John Purcell, he wanted religious education taught here. At that time, it was a wilderness in the mid-1800s. So he wrote and invited the Ursulines from France to come here under the direction of Sister Julia Chatfield. And they came and set up a school for girls in St. Martin's, which is another mile from here. And that school continued for 125 years. The girls from that school graduated, came from this area, and the nuns taught the children of St. Martin's, the children of St. Patrick's, and the children from Blanchester, which is a neighboring town. Fast forward to 2003, and the priest shortage crisis. There was a real problem because priests were retiring and not being replaced.
Right.
And so St. Patrick's merged with St. Martin's Church and Holy Name Church in Blanchester, and they took the name St. Angela Merici. The three churches retained their names, but they had the status of chapels. So, for instance, this is St. Angela Merici Parish, but it's St. Patrick's Chapel.
Bill, when was the original St. Patrick's founded and the church built? Because I understand the first Mass was said in 1817.
That's correct. There was a Mass said in a farmhouse here in this community, a record of it anyway, by Father Hill, who was a Jesuit priest. That was a long time, though, 20 years, in fact, until the parish was actually founded here at Fayetteville. The bishop had founded a seminary in St. Martin's near here in 1832, but it was there for the training of priests and had nothing to do with parish work. So he was scouting around for a place to put a parish, and he found that Fayetteville was really in a central location. the counties around here would all be serviced by a church if it were in Fayetteville, like in all of Brown County, Highland County, Clinton County, Claremont County. So he decided to put a church here. And he solicited the founder of the village, a man by the name of Cornelius McGroarty, to donate the site for the church, and Patrick O'Connor to donate land for a cemetery adjoining the church in the back. It took 4 years to build. It was 40 feet wide, 70 feet long, and it had a capacity of 375 people. And the dedication occurred at the end of that period in 1841. The bishop was here. Bishop John Purcell was here. There was also an orchestra that was brought out from Cincinnati to celebrate the occasion.
So, Bill, how is this church different from what we see today?
Well, it's quite different because that was a pre-Vatican II church. And at that time, the altar was against the wall, not in the middle of the sanctuary. The altar was made of marble, and there were 4 spires, 2 on either side of a soaring crucifix in the middle of the altar piece. And above the altar was a dome. And in the middle of the altar, there was a huge picture of St. Patrick's looking out over everyone. So the sanctuary light, which is now off to the side of the altar, was hanging from the middle of the ceiling. And on either side, there were 2 marble altars, one dedicated to Mary and one dedicated to St. Joseph. And at that time, there was an altar railing that extended from that wall all the way to this wall, all across the church. And the lighting, of course, there was no electricity at that time.
Right.
And so there were 2 to 3 chandeliers above the middle aisle. And these chandeliers had 6 coal oil lamps on each one. And so the custodian could pull the lamp down because it was attached to a pulley mechanism, light the lights, and then push it back up. And so that was the lighting fixture. At that time, there was no baptismal font on the altar, there was no choir loft, and there was no bell tower or steeple. That would come later in 1885. At that time, there was a lot of growth in the parish after the church was built up until World War I. In fact, in 1880, there were 1,500 people in the parish, and the baptisms were occurring about 60 per year. That's once a week. Also in 1910, there were 80 First Communions, if you can believe that, at St. Patrick's. And so there was a need to expand the church. And the first expansion was undertaken in 1885 by Father Beau, who was the pastor here at that time. And he built the choir loft, the bell tower, and the steeple. And the bell actually was ordered from the Buckeye Bell Foundry in Cincinnati. It was a huge bell, and it was brought out on a horse-drawn wagon and installed. And the story is that when the bell was rung, it could be heard for 2 miles away.
Really?
The bell was rung manually. A rope was tied to the bell and then came down through the ceiling to the vestibule, and there was a bell ringer that pulled on the rope to ring the bell. So that was quite unique. That's gone now, of course. It's been mechanized. The second expansion took place in 1906 when the parish built a rectory, which is next door.
Okay.
And the priest quarters in the back of the church was raised, and the sanctuary was moved back so that 40 feet was added to the length of the church, and there was a sacristy installed. One thing I need to mention is that the St. Anne's Rosary and Altar Society sponsored a booklet that was published here on the occasion of our 150th anniversary, and it's entitled Our Heritage, St. Patrick's Church. I should mention that in 2003, when the parish name changed from St. Patrick's to St. Angela Merici, an icon was commissioned of St. Angela. And it was written by people that know how to write icons, and it's mounted on the wall of the church here to remember our patron, St. Angela.
Bill, that's awesome, and it's a great one to end on. Thank you for watching another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm Susie Selleck. Today we were in Fayetteville, Ohio, here at the St. Angela Merici Parish and the St. Patrick's Chapel, and we have been joined by Bill McCafferty. Bill, thank you so much for having us.
I'm glad you came.
And remember, travel slowly and stop often. Bye for now.